And we are live. Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Saturday from a very overcast, very rainy, drizzly, chilly Missouri day. My apologies if you can hear some drip drops in the background. I mean, it's raining and nature is doing what it does. But despite the fact that, it would have been nice to get into the garden, do a little bit of prep work today, with all of the rain, that was just not in the cards at all. So instead, I have been doing a little bit of renovating and upgrading, and this has been a process that has been taking place over the past week or so at Blackbird's Brew on Gilded, and I want to give you all a little bit of a tour so you can see what's what, and if you've never visited us, to see what it might have to offer you and what you would be able to offer to the group in return. So we have everything nice and neat, organized into categories. And these categories, they essentially function as like, little drop-down boxes, chapters in a book. And our first category is the bulletin board. This is going to be your general information hub. The first thing is the welcome wagon, and it's a document channel, and you will find with all the document channels, instead of being like a traditional chat room, what they are is they're little individual files like this. You click on them, like so, and then once it feels like loading, anytime now, there we go, then you'll be able to see the message that is, and we have a lot. Whenever you're first visiting Blackbird's Brew, visit the welcome wagon and then go on to the charter, because the welcome is simply, hello, nice to meet you, glad that you're here. The charter essentially explains the purpose of the group and what we hope it for to gradually become. Because right now, a pagan community builder is not as much as what we would like about in-person, face-to-face kind of interactions. And so the online world is, kind of what we're making do with. The charter explains that, and also explains about how this is a way for people who are like-minded, perhaps on a similar path, or who are similar in other ways, to be able to get connected, to get to know each other, and to hopefully eventually be able to form in-person, real-life communities. I mean, that is always the eventual goal. This is just a stepping stone for it, and that's what the charter explains. Then a new document channel that I added is etiquette. I am not a rules person. Rules really, really bore me, but it is kind of nice to let people knows kind of how we generally do things, just because people treat each other so abominably online these days. I mean, and we've all experienced it. Probably most of us have been guilty of it in times past. And the goal really is to just kind of say, hey, we are friends here. We are coming together in a spirit of mutual goodwill, and just a few guidelines and some grace notes about how to best, get into these waters and to treat it like the community we're trying to make it, as opposed to just treating it the way other people treat social media, places where people shout, post, and run and get into arguments rather than discussions. So hello, Georgia. Happy to have you here. And hello, Amanda. Got my best girls in the chat. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going back in between screens, so I won't necessarily be seeing chats as quickly, but I am going back and forth and looking for them. So under etiquette, we have the channel directory, and if in doubt, absolutely go to the channel directory every single time. It tells you what channels we have, what their purposes are for. It lets you know which channels are read only, because there's some things, like the welcome wagon, the charter, there's not really anything to say. It just is what it is. And then there are other channels where it is about contributing information or getting into discussions or getting acquainted with other people. And that just kind of lets you know what's what. And of course, if in doubt, you can contact me, or you can contact one of the admins, either Georgia Liberty or Puritan View, and they can point you in the right direction. It really is that simple. Then under that, we have announcements. So whatever's going on, if there's a schedule change or someone's birthday, that's where the announcement will be. It just kind of lets everyone know what's going on. Then we have the calendar beneath that. The calendar is the everything calendar right now. It got a lot more cluttered up when I was first starting in important dates throughout the year, our holidays, and then I did the full moons, the new moons, people's birthdays, different astrological shifts of planets. And then I realized this calendar is really, really cluttered, because I also had group chats scheduled on there as well. So I'm gradually untangling that. I'm starting to have different calendars in different places to communicate different information so it's a little less confusing. But right now we have the calendar. And also through the calendar, whenever there's a group chat scheduled, it's through the calendar that I can send the invites. So I just select all members. That way people can just, make up their own minds if they want to attend, if they want to participate. You can accept, decline, put maybe, ignore, whatever. But that's essentially where that's coming from. And then below that is the brainstorm box. Brainstorm, not complaints box. Very important distinction there. The brainstorm box is all about, it's where I'll put up polls periodically, just ask people's opinions on things. Sometimes really obscure stuff that I don't want to get lost in the jumble of the main chat room. Something that I just want to get a little bit of feedback about. Other times it'll be about suggestions about improvements for the server, what might actually be useful to us, what might be helpful to the members. This is where all of that goes. And again, it is the brainstorming box, not the complaints department. Any kind of complaints, grievances, whatever, that is something to send to me or one of the moderators in a DM privately. We will handle it off server because I'm not interested in having oceans of drama on the server. I'm too old, and that's a fact. Next category, we have the pub. And the pub that's where just kind of where the main action of the server is. If you're wanting to interact with people, this is where you will generally find them. First, we have the hearth. That is the free-for-all, any topic, say hello, visit with each other, whatever's popping into your head. That is the place to bring that. I try to, at least during the day when I'm working on other things, I try to at least have an eye on the hearth. That way I'm able to, interact with someone because, we've all got different schedules. We're all going here and there and everywhere, but, I'm the one who created this project. So if anyone needs to stick around a bit more and be around a bit more, it's me because, I'm the one who did this and have encouraged people to come here. So I try to keep an eye on that to make sure that everyone is greeted and says hello, and that if someone is wanting to talk, I will rearrange my schedule. I do that pretty regularly. Anytime that I'm in the hearth, you can probably also count I'm either planning new content for the month, or I was working on an outline on the side, or, preparing the next month's astrology, whatever it is. I've always got a lot of plates spinning in the air, but if someone's in the hearth and they're wanting to have a discussion, I absolutely make myself available as much as humanly possible. Underneath that, we have the smoking room. So, your current events, your cranky politics, and also more general information that doesn't neatly fit elsewhere. Like last evening, someone posted a very interesting video from the Fortress of Lou, and it was about the role of women in ancient pagan pre-Christian societies and what that was really composed of, and all of the various reasons why it was and how we know that it was. Really fascinating stuff. But, it wasn't about any one particular tribe of people. So I suggested, well, let's put that in the smoking room because that's more a topic of general universal interest, because anyone of European descent, this is part of your heritage. This is, part of your background. And so that's a good place to kind of put those things that are just a little bit tricky. And of course, by having more of the politics and the current events, if you're needing a break from all of that stuff, and let's face it, most of us do periodically need a break, it's contained. It's relatively contained. It's in the smoking room. And if you're needing just to get away from all of that, you can, and it's not a big deal. Underneath that, we have the banquet hall. And the banquet hall is a channel that has both voice and video capabilities. This is where we gather for a lot of group chats, apart from workshops, which has its own thing, as you'll see. And the nice thing about that is that even if you don't have your camera on, you can at least then hear people's voices. And that is such a huge thing, because you take away tone of voice, facial expressions, body language, 1,000 other things, and you are missing the vast majority of the data that we actually communicate with. I mean, let's face it, human beings did not evolve to really communicate properly through text, which is why it's always been so challenging in this day and age of social media. And so the banquet hall is kind of my answer to that. It's the next best thing to just coming together in a coffee house or gathering in someone's living room and just having a face-to-face chat. Sometimes we have kind of a topic of the evening that we get into. Other times it's just visiting, catching up, hello, how are you, that sort of thing. And of course, the banquet hall, it is available to all of the members at any time. You don't need special permission to make use of that channel. You don't have to forewarn anyone or anything else. You can just simply say, hey, I've got some time. I kind of feel like chatting. Does anyone want to come with me into the banquet hall, you can go in there, you can have a conversation with someone that's a little bit more relaxed and natural. Now, when we do have group chats, there is one point of etiquette that I do kind of want to underscore. You do, based on the settings where they're at now, you can, listen in. But the trouble is that if you are just listening in as opposed to actually participating, it is a little bit awkward, because the group chats, they're not like, a private members only podcast. That's not what they are. That's not their purpose. And my goodness, it isn't that stiff. At least I hope it isn't, because that's not the intention. It is a chance for people to really come together and have an exchange of ideas. Now, if we were all in the same room and face to face, it really wouldn't be a big deal if someone was very shy, or if they weren't quite ready to interact, because we could see them, we could read their expressions, we could see whether or not they were interested in. It would be a lot more personable. But because we can't see each other, especially if someone's just listening in, well, it can make people who are having a conversation kind of feel on display, kind of awkward. The conversation can become stilted. So the one thing is that on group chat nights, if you are going to pop in, please pop in for real. Communicate with us. I promise you, we don't bite. A lot of people are shy. A lot of members are very introverted. Just because I make the effort to be a little bit more extroverted in my videos and the live streams and the group chats, don't assume that that's my natural mode of being. Believe me, I get it. I know how hard it can be to walk into a group of what's essentially strangers and say, "Hi, my name is." Yeah, I get it. It's hard. So rest assured, no one's going to bite you. It's going to be fine. Just, give us a chance and get to know us, because I think that is the best way that you actually get to know your fellow group members, and where it becomes possible for friendships to actually form. Now, underneath the banquet hall, we have the conservatory. This was a special request by the moderator, Puritan View, and it is for music. All genres, any topic. If you love it, share it with us. If you hate it and think, "I think this is the worst song ever, and here's all the reasons why I hate it," you can do that too. But it is all about the music. Oh, and hello, Paddy's Parlour. Thank you for joining us. Because I think it is important for us to also have not just informational stuff, but also to be able to reawaken kind of a pagan culture and spirit. And a lot of that is through music and art and literature and all that sort. So we are getting started with the music. Next category is center stage. Now, center stage is essentially where the big stuff that I'm personally focusing on the month. That's where you will find it. We begin with seasonal delights. So if whatever season it is, like we're just getting into spring, we also have Ostara coming up. You will see me post something every single day, at least once, that relates to that. And, everyone is welcome to do the same. Unless it's a read-only channel, please feel free to participate. That's literally what these things are for. Now, underneath that, we have daily astrology, which is just what it sounds like. It's just a list of what signs each of the planets are in. I started including a notation of whether they're cardinal or fixed or mutable signs, and what's their elemental assignment, just to give people kind of a basic idea of, okay, what's in the ether today, what kind of energy is out there. And if you want to get further into it, please absolutely do so. If you have additional information to add, absolutely do that too. That would be very helpful. Most of us around the server consider ourselves to be students of astrologies, not masters of them. So don't be bashful. And if you are well versed in astrology, please don't hesitate to correct any errors that are made, because this is what we're here for. We can't learn from each other if we don't communicate. Underneath that, we have the daily divination channel. I've just been putting up a tarot card of the day. It's a similar function to the astrology of the day. Only the tarot card is also kind of another way of, just kind of, sticking up your finger, seeing which way the wind is blowing, seeing what kind of energy is around you. And I just been putting up tarot. If you want to put up your own stuff, you absolutely can. If you want to show off your new tarot deck or your new rune set or whatever it is you're into, as far as it's divination related, that is absolutely the place for that. Then we have daily devotional. Since the first of the year, I've been sharing the daily devotionals from A Year and a Day of Everyday Witchcraft by Deborah Blake, and I've been sharing the exercises. And more than anything else, I have found that it's kind of useful for giving a person something to meditate on, kind of refocus focus our minds on something that is spiritual rather than whatever nonsense is going on in the outside world. It's been very grounding for me. I have found that I do not find her particular book as useful as I did in times past. So I'm toying with an idea of doing something related but different in the coming year. So we'll see what comes of that, because let's face it, I got a lot of pie plates spinning at the moment. So we'll see what I can get done. Then we have the theme of the month. At the beginning of the month, what I do is I post a collage, and it'll have, just the general idea, what kind of spirit of the month. This week we're talking about awakening, because of course the earth is awakening this month. It'll have, pictures of, what plant I'm drawing attention to, an animal, a stone, or a mineral or metal, a mythological being, a deity of the month, and also a reference to a magical method of the month. And so at the beginning, under theme of the month, you will have this big collage. And then every few days, you'll have something that relates to that overall spirit. Like every few days, I'll have something about awakening. We've had a lot of posts lately about spiritual awakening, and this is what it's for. Then plant of the month, that's just what that's about. This month it happens to be daffodil. Then we have animal, stone, mythical being, deity, magical method of the month. You'll find all of those various areas of focus. I have the kind of brain to where if I tried to study 50 different things all at once, I guarantee you I'm not absorbing any of that information. But if I focus in and hone in on specific things, then not only do I retain information, but I start to have a greater depth of understanding. And so if your brain also works that way, yay, this might be a useful resource for you. And if you are the person who's looking at 50 things at the same time, then, you are way ahead of me. I'm sure you have your own ways of getting yourself intellectually stimulated. I'll put it that way. Now, our next category is the workshops. We have the workshop calendar, which is essentially where I make a notation of when the group chats for the workshop itself will be. Now, for these chats, we're not going over the material itself, but this is more so the stage of where we're showing the work of, what have you done as you've wrestled with this particular concept, or as you have done this particular thing. It's essentially what have you gotten out of this experience, comparing notes and talking about what we've learned and how we're going to apply this and take it forward. Underneath that, you will see a channel for the workroom. That's where these chats take place. It has both video and voice capabilities. And then under that, you have a forum. Forums look a little bit different, so I want to make sure I show them to you. So I'm going to click on it. We only have one forum under the workshop category so far, because this is the first one that I've really made an formal effort to really create. And you'll see it's all the chakras in order from root on up to crown. And if you want to read information about a particular chakra, you just click on it, and that'll work very well. And within all of this, it's not just basic information about the chakra itself. It gives you a few ideas about ways in which you can work with it, different exercises you might try, journaling questions, meditation questions. And all of these ideas are just suggestions. It's to get you started with your work. And where you take it from there, I mean, that's part of what we talk about whenever we meet together to say, okay, this is what I came up with. And it's a pretty rewarding experience. Now, of course, like all workshops, what you get out of it depends upon what you put into it. So if you're not getting much in, it's probably because you didn't put much in. But if you put a lot in, you actually can reap a whole lot of the rewards. Now, underneath that, we have the cookbook. This is a very new innovation, and it's something I've been wanting to do for a long time, specifically because culinary magic, kitchen magic, that sort of thing, that is a very nice, convenient thing for any magical practitioner to really get into in order to flex out their craft on a daily basis. These aren't big spells. These aren't major rituals. This is just making use of the magical properties within the ingredients of the food that you were cooking anyway, and using that to advantage in your household. And as you can see, we have categories for breakfast, lunch, tea time, dinner, dessert, beverages, and it's sharing recipes. So these can be recipes of your own, things that your grandma handed down to you, something you found on the internet, something that you took from a book. Please make a notation of where these recipes are coming from. And then also, for bonus points, make a little notation behind each ingredient about what its magical properties are. That's what I've been doing. And that way, whenever someone looks at the recipe, they say, oh, okay, a lot of these ingredients have to do with abundance or prosperity or protection or healing. So therefore, now that I know know that if I'm going to cook this anyway, I'm going to make use of that. And of course, every ingredient, it has more than just one magical property, but I just kept it simple for the sake of this, both for ease of use and also just to make things a little bit easier for everyone. And hello to Fuzzy321. All sorts of stuff are up. We are taking a tour. Thanks for joining in. Now, also underneath all of that, we have the next category, which is the cleaning closet. There's just, there's just one document channel in that so far. It's homemade cleaners recipes. It's also about just kind of using our cleaners and various things that we can make on our own, and also making use of those magical properties so that, we can just add another layer of magic to our home, add another layer of intention. And these are things that are within the realm of possibility for people to do anyway. And I think that's important about, taking the magic of our lifestyle and applying it to the practical realm. Keeping things theoretical, I'm sure that makes some people feel very smart, but magic is a muscle. You got to exercise that muscle, and tiny small things, adding on a little layer of healing there, putting up a little protection over there, it goes such a long way towards preventing major problems. So instead of having to have major rituals to sort out major problems, you instead just kind of have little layers that have a cumulative effect, and then overall you have a household that is a lot more secure. So something to bear in mind there. Now, underneath the cleaning closet, we have the apothecary. I have wanted to have something like this for a very long time, and I hesitated for forever because, well, we know what kind of climate we are living in when it comes to medical matters, when it comes to healing, and when it comes to pharmaceutical companies and social media companies thinking that they know everything and that they know best. However, with the caveat of none of this is intended to replace professional medical advice. Always seek the advice of your doctor, blah, blah, blah. All of that is, we can take as read, and that's just a notation that I make so that no one can sue me or the other members out of opportunism or just because they have toast for brains and don't know how to exercise proper judgment. But we have one channel that is home remedies. This is, and this could also be another place where you could post, my great grandmother's chicken soup that guarantees cures the cold, palliative measures, how to make our illnesses and our injuries a lot more bearable. And then underneath that, we have magical healing. Now, this is straight up spell work and ritual that is designed to promote and to aid the healing process. And this is something that obviously will be of greater interest to the witches in the group. But, the information is there, and people can make use of it or not as they see fit at their own risk on their own judgment. Now, beneath there, we have the gardens. We are getting into gardening season, after all. First, we have the potager. I know there's an R at the end of it, but it's a French word, so it's potager, not potager. And this is essentially for anything having to do with the gardening of vegetables or herbs. This could be garden plans, how you're going to lay this out, what things grow well together, what things you should not plant next to each other, what kind of soil different plants need, anything at all related to that, including, of course, your pictures of your own gardening efforts. Let's cheer each other on. There are some people who are very experienced gardeners in the group, and there are other people who are, kind of stumbling on their first steps of it. So providing a little bit of mutual support and encouragement, that can go a long way. And the orchard, it's the same thing basically, only it's centered on fruits, whether it's growing on a tree or a vine or a shrub or whatever else. And then we have ornamental gardening for the pretty stuff, beautiful things that we planted just because they look nice or they smell nice, or, that particular flower was fuzzy and we liked its texture. I don't think we should forget, just kind of the joy that our senses can experience just through ornamental gardening. I don't think that's a frou-frou thing. I think it's a very nice thing. I always think that if a house has no landscaping, then the house essentially is not finished. I think it's an important thing to do. Maybe at some point we'll have something to have to do with houseplants. I just hadn't quite thought of it yet. And I'll be honest, my success rate with houseplants is not encouraging. So perhaps a channel for another day. And now after this, we have the category of the stone circle. This is essentially where we come together because last month for a Malk, I held the first ever group ritual, and I liked it, and the people who attended it liked it. And I thought, you know what, let's start doing this. We're too far flung across the country to actually, meet face to face. So let's do the next best thing. This doesn't, of course, preclude anyone from doing their own private rituals. But if you would just like to have a moment where you can come together in common celebration and worship with your fellow pagans, this is what I have to offer at this time. So we have the altar room, which is a video and streaming voice channel. That's where the rituals are actually conducted. And then underneath it, we have the grimoire. And essentially that's where I keep the outlines and the scripts for any rituals that will be conducted there. They're very simple. They're very straightforward. If you want to borrow them, please be my guest, and you are welcome to adapt them however you want them. It's something that I want to do because I think that's the sort of thing that helps bring people together as a community. Underneath that, we have the soapbox channels. These are for our pagan content creators. These channels are for not just pagan content creators, but people who are members of this group. And by members of this group, I'm saying people who are properly members, people who interact with the group on a regular basis, who have made themselves a part of these things. And people who interact with others, they don't just show up and say, here's all my problems, please comfort me. It's people who actually take an interest in other people as well. They are giving as well as taking. And, they're willing to have conversations, and they're willing to interact with other people. And most importantly, they're willing to help support and promote the other content creators on this channel. If we all kind of build this web together, all of us can get more exposure, and that means more sane people who are pagan are in the public light a little bit more, and that can help gradually over time working against all of the outlandish images that non-pagans might have in their heads about us. We're not going to overcome their prejudices until they see other evidence with their own eyes, and we have a lot of work to do. So, we might as well begin now. No time like the present. The first is A Nocturnal Pagan. He is a shaman. He does a lot of his magical workings at night. Because of a change in his work schedule, his channel is currently on hiatus, but, we love him so much that, he will always have this channel forever and ever as long as he wants it. Underneath that, Brigantia Blackbird is where you'll find all my video links if you want to keep track of that. Then we have Pagan Prepper, Universal Pagan Temple. That is by Sigrún Gregerson. She is a practicing witch. She's into Norse paganism. And of course, she's also very knowledgeable about things like prepping. And she's been going through a lot of medical issues with her child. He deals with epilepsy and other issues. And she's been talking about that, both as handling that as a parent and wanting to connect with other pagan parents whose children might be experiencing things like autism or epilepsy of that sort, just coming together, forming some support group. So any love you can show her way, I know she would greatly. Underneath that, we have the Druid's Den, which highlights the works of Druid Foxx. She does a lot of, usually about once a week or so, every so often a little bit more, but usually you can depend on her once a week. She'll have a blog post in which she reviews a particular book. It usually has something to do with paganism or the practice of magic, or sometimes she'll post her own original poetry. You never know quite what you'll get, but she does a lot of book reviews. She reads a lot of books that would make your eyes bleed, and she lets us know which ones are the baddies, so that we don't have to go through that traumatic experience. We appreciate the sacrifice, Druid, we really do. But in addition to that, she's also a children's author, so she does a lot of good work there. Underneath there, we have True North EuroFaith. That channel belongs to Gandalf Freyasson. He's been doing a newsletter called the True North EuroFaith. He does a lot of education work. He does a lot of work that is meant to promote pagan values, and he will discuss about how these are not just compatible with conservative values, but essentially these are the foundation of conservative values. It is about family. It is about having a healthy structure of society. It's about people coming together based on common values of honesty and integrity and right doing. He's an older gentleman. We value the fact that I think he is currently our eldest member of the group. He has some wisdom to share, and we're just so glad that we have him. And then last but not at all least, it is my partner in crime, Wiccan Conservative, known to many of you as Georgia Liberty. She and I can be counted on for at least one live stream a week, oftentimes with our dear friend Amanda Cox. Right now, Amanda's her schedule has been running her right off her feet, but we are hoping you that that she will be able to return to us soon, and that her schedule will cooperate, because she really does add a little something to the conversation, and it also is bridge building work, because we're all trying to make a society in which we can more or less all coexist, and goodness knows other people out there in the public voice, they're not quite talking about that, but the three of us are. So if you give us some support, we would greatly appreciate that. Now for the category underneath that, we have the library. This is where we get into information that is a lot more specific to certain forms of pagan spirituality. We have the channel for Celtic spirituality, then Egyptian, Kemetic, anything based on that. Then we have Greco-Roman, anything Hellenistic. We have Native American. I mean, not many of us have a lot of Native American ancestry, but, we live on a land that was lived on by the Native American tribes before the European settlers. So I just cannot justify setting aside any of the traditions and wisdom that they have from the experience of working with these land spirits, that we're also living with. That just doesn't strike me as a smart thing to do, to ignore what they know. So there's a place for that. Underneath that, there's a channel for Slavic spirituality. You can't see it, but beneath that, my little window's in the way. Let me see. Will that do it? There we go. Okay. Underneath Slavic, we have witchcraft. This is every form of witchcraft, but I really shouldn't need specification. But I mean, obviously, this is pagan witchcraft. I know there are other religions that like to dabble in magic, and I know that there are Christian witches who like to combine the two. But those are fusion paths. Those are activities in which people are having to ignore rather large amounts of doctrine and worldview in order to combine it all together. It's very much its own thing. I'm not telling anyone that they can't or they shouldn't practice that. I'm just saying that it is different from what the rest of us do, and I think it's important to maintain that distinction. And then underneath that, we have a final category of the archives. These are retired channels. You can still read them, but you just can't do anything else with them. They are at rest, but they are still available for you to see. And that is the new and the improved Blackbird's Brew. I have ideas for new things in the future. I am wanting to have a few more facilities that relate to astrology specifically. I just did not have the brain space in the past couple of days to also create a whole new thing for that. But it is important because the astrological positionings, how these things, concepts fit together, they are like another layer of weather. Instead of the physical weather, they represent the energetic weather. And I think it's worth having some workable knowledge on that, especially since so few astrological channels out there do anything that even remotely resembles a decent job when it comes to explaining these concepts. We're on our own, but there's no reason why we can't learn and help each other grow in knowledge. And I do want to do that later on down the road. I want to expand the cleaning closet. I want that to include other things because there's nothing quite like having your house in order. If your house is in order, that means probably your brain is in order, which means life is more or less in order. And that makes everything else that's going on outside of it a lot more manageable. And I think that's important because the world is rapidly spinning out of control. So anything we can do to kind of keep ourselves together in a workable fashion, I think that's ultimately to both our practical and our spiritual benefit. And there may be other things as time goes along. And if you have your own ideas, leave them for me in the brainstorm box. I can't guarantee that I will attend to them immediately, but if you let it work in my brain for a little while, and especially if you're willing to do some brainstorming with me, that would go a long way to actually creating something that'll be a benefit not only to the person who made the suggestion, but also to the rest of the group members. Because, let's face it, I'm not a mind reader. That's not one of my talents, gang. It just is not. So the only way I'm going to know for sure what people want to hear about, what they need to hear about, what they would like to participate in and contribute to is, through just communicating with me. And hopefully there are enough avenues left over at the server to where that communication can take place. And of course, if you're new, please don't be bashful. I guarantee you, you're not shyer than me. Every time I go online, make a video, say hello to anyone new in the server, I'm essentially ripping apart all of my external defenses, pushing past all of my instincts and doing the necessary thing. Because let's face it, I mean, online communities, this is really all that we've got. I really don't see anyone who's offering a viable alternative at this time. But I can see how we can use our technological capabilities to eventually build up communities in that waking world where people can be face to face. It can be more natural, more organic, and just a lot more comfortable. But for now, we got to use what we got, and I'm trying to do my little bit with that, and I hope you'll join me on that journey. But that's all that I really had on my mind this afternoon. Thank you, everyone who tuned in and who's been talking with Amanda in the comment section. Really appreciate that. I hope this explanation and tour wasn't too dry. It's a lot of information. It's kind of hard to go through in a way that actually makes it interesting. So if you listened all the way through, thank you ever so much. Please join the Gilded Group. We would love to have you there. We can continue conversations. And absolutely, I mean, let's be friends. Let's get to know each other. Let's start creating a society we actually want to live in. Let's not be passive victims of the insanity of the world. It's going right off that cliff. There are some people, there's nothing we can do to prevent them from going off that cliff. They're just going to have to feel that crash at the end before they reconsider their life's choices. But for those of us who don't want to go off that cliff and who would like to have something better, let's start building that together. It is a group effort, and I'm very thankful for everyone who's come along with me in that, and let's just keep at it. So thank you again. See you next time.